All right, so recorders, there was a lot of great ideas going on, I know. So now let's share those ideas. We need a volunteer who wants to share a good idea for family or community engagement activity linked to an academic goal. Who did an academic goal? Anyone?
I'm happy to go if the team wants. I took the notes, but I don't want to take up too much airtime. But okay. Are you cool, Joey and Nicole? I have the notes.
They're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we actually did a reading comprehension goal, and we chose middle school. And since we have mostly rural schools in our portfolio, we chose a fictional rural middle school. And assuming that the school has come up with their academic goals, they wanted to increase reading comprehension by 10% in all sixth graders from the beginning to the end of the academic year. Obviously, they're going to look at a lot of different things like ELA report card grades, obviously doing comprehension testing at the beginning and quarterly, potentially throughout the school year. But the desired result is obviously an increase overall by 10% aggregate across the grade. And I think that covers the SMART goals section. So we had a really rich discussion around different activities we could do. And we talked about sort of it was more of a launch at the beginning of the school year. And I think we all thought this because that's when people have energy, right? That's when folks are like ready to go. So, and interestingly enough, there was an example that was done in New Hampshire through New Hampshire Humanities not long ago that kind of leveraged this model. So we talked about the school selecting a local author and a book that's, appropriate for the age range, but leveraging surveys in the school libraries, data that the librarians can provide on what authors or topics are resonating with the kids, because we want it to be something that the students are going to read. Having English language arts classes, do some pre-work, and this would obviously be done the prior school year, and then come up with a selection, have the school select a book based off of various standards that would make sense, and then they would essentially launch this as the big read for the year. So at the very beginning of the school year, there would be a parent guide sent home, and a big announcement, communicating this out in a variety of channels through social media, through letters home, through through Parent Square, all of that good stuff. And it would be an explanation of here's why we chose this book. Here's how we chose this book. This was driven by the students' interest. Here's how it ties back to all of the other things that we're talking about. And here are some questions that you can ask your student throughout the year, or throughout different phases of the book. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 1. Then we'd have the author visit early in so the beginning of the school year. That notice would go home first week. The research that we would do would have been done prior. Then I wrote kind of between September, October of the school year, the author visit and the kickoff. So make it exciting, hype it up, get the students excited. And then the school would then also partner potentially with local businesses to raise funds to do a free book club for other members of the family reading the same book. So there could be partnerships with the local library to get X number of copies. We could solicit local businesses, donations, and then make the book available later in the first half of the school year, maybe October to December, for the remaining folks in the household who'd want to be a part of that. So whether it's the caregivers, maybe it's a high school student also in the school. And that way it's getting folks engaged in the book throughout the year. So it was sort of one intervention, but we cut it up into a lot of different things. So the parent guide obviously would cover 1, 4, and 2 in terms of the types. The author visit 2 and 6, the surveys and info, and all of that would be, sort of type 5 to some extent in type 2. The book club itself, we think, would cover types 3, 6, and 1. And I think that is, and we did say we'd focus on 6th grade. So grade
Very
levels.
good, very good.
And we didn't get into the nitty gritty of how all this will happen. That's obviously where the rubber meets the road, but we did get off to a good start, I think. Hopefully I covered everything.
I think you did.
You got off to a very creative kind of the big story, Allison and group one is that. There are a number of schools, really not just for sixth grade, but whole schools that really have used everyone reading the same book. That really helps families talk to their youngster about different parts of the book or different characters in the book. And a lot of these are in our books of promising partnership practices. I remember one, I think it was last year, was just very creative too. The notion that there were all kinds of ways to look at a book, and the music teacher helped the kids write a song about the book. And the gym teacher helped the kids do a dance about the book. And then they created a kind of a parade or an assembly show where they helped the family see all the different ways to look at reading a book. So there are wonderful ideas that you can follow up for yet kind of more ways to think about reading the same book and talking about it, and many different ways to help parents know how to ask or what questions to ask of kids at different grade levels. Teachers can create a template for parents. We never put the parents to work to figure out these kinds of things. They don't have time. They don't really want to be the teacher. They want to be kind of that facilitating, helpful person who motivates their child to read the book, talk about the book, take action on the book, and so on. So that was very good and a good way to start this group thinking of academic goals. And you were right, Allison, the form that we were using, that Brenda showed you, the one-year action plan page, has a lot of details that your teams at the school would figure out sooner or later. So let's go on, Brenda, to
all right, a non-academic or behavior goal. That many of you must have stayed with your goal from yesterday, so don't chime in all at once, but please chime in.
This is Jason. Anthony was in my group.
Okay.
I'm happy to go through. I took the notes, so I can make Anthony try to remember what we talked about, but it'd be easier if I just read it.
That sounds good.
Yeah, our group stuck on the same topic, which I think has been helpful kind of walking through the process. So we were looking at attendance as a, let me pull
Good. Yeah.
my notes here, as our area of focus. So what we worked on was a kind of a high school goal, really based on some metrics we're trying to attain in our community, actually. So the goal is at the end of the 24-25 school year to raise our annual attendance rate to 94%. So it's a pretty very daunting goal in a good way. So that's the goal. We came up with 2 different activities to help us focus on that. And so the first one was creating an incentive program for students that show improved attendance, and also ones that maintain a high rate. So first we're going to separate those 2 out, but realize that it'd be good to recognize both in the same program. So going through the sheet, we believe that all 6 types, based on what we talked about yesterday, would be involved in this program. We would try to incorporate monthly events, so to speak, for incentives. So things like catering food into the high school from local restaurants for kids that meet these goals, and having a nice meal for them, doing an in-house movie day, going on a field trip to our local minor league baseball team that's about an hour away. Just fun activities like that. And some of these are already items that they've been thinking about, and that actually came from student feedback, which I thought was really neat. And from a timeline perspective, the idea is, okay, if we're going to do these every month, then we better at least have all of the planning and all of the approvals that are needed with regard to transportation and space, have that all completed the 30 days prior. So we're just working on a cycle like that. In terms of people helping in charge, student assistant coordinator at the school, we have a 9th grade on track coordinator that would be helping family and community volunteers, student council, ROTC, our special needs students were groups that would help out with this in terms of planning and even helping serve and those kinds of things. And then resources, obviously we need maybe food supplies, either donated or purchased. So funds for that. Obviously we need to think about space. Where are we going to have these if it's going to be inside our school? If we're going to go outside the school, how are we going to handle transportation? And then one thing we've talked about in both of our activities were, do we have marketing funds available to get the word out about this incentive program, not only to our students, but to the families, to help encourage people to think about that attendance rate. The second activity we came up with was a student mentoring program. So again, all 6 types we thought would be involved. Doing a weekly activity with students that are enrolled in this program for grades 9 through 12. So what we have to have done for that would, again, kind of the same model, but now on a weekly, we would need to have our space reserved for meetings. We'd have to have program for the mentors. So thinking about training the mentors and having programming for them instead of just sitting them in a room and just saying, hey, just talk to the kids. So having that thought through. Again, having some marketing materials to students and families would be helpful. People in charge and helping would be our student assistant coordinator, principal, faculty, and community volunteers that would serve as mentors. Again, we need funds for this, supplies, marketing funds, and then one critical thing that we've already mentioned would be if we're having mentoring meetings, we want to make sure we have enough space for all the students that are enrolled. So that is pretty much sums up what we threw out for attendance.
Those are excellent ideas, Jason and group. And I want to mention a couple of things. First, both of you, volunteer number 1, Allison, and you, Jason, for both of your groups, you did something that we hope your schools will do when they're thinking about the planning form. Allison mentioned that the goal might be that everybody sort of improves in reading 10% on whatever measure or test or assessment that you all use. That's a reasonable goal for a year's time. And Jason, your group was looking at reaching a kind of a target, 94% attendance. That is a high attendance rate for a high school, but it is attainable and much more attainable than 99%. Usually the last 2 or 3%, up to 5% of a change in reading achievement or attendance kind of measures, the last 3 to 5% is hard to reach. So the comprehensiveness of, Jason, what you were saying as you worked across the line of the action plan form showed some good thinking, and especially the notion of working on improved attendance. And then you said those who maintain good attendance, which is a very good thing to do. So we don't look for perfect attendance, but we do want to see, and we don't want to leave out the youngsters who are high to begin with, and it's hard to improve from there. They're going to be high again. But both those who maintain good attendance and those who improve their attendance, those are good targets, and you talked about both of them. So again, today you're showing that your groups are really thoughtful people who are taking in these kinds of guidelines that we're offering. We try to keep them pretty brief, because if we can get things down to a real kind of bare bones basics, it's much more likely that you really will follow through. So these were 2 good volunteering kinds of examples of an academic goal, and a non-behavioral goal. Tells us that you were using your time in your breakout room really very well. Let's go on, Brenda, to these last 2.
What was most difficult for your school team to come up when you were writing this plan? What kind of stumped you a little bit and you were really not clear about that or sure about what you were going to do with that? Can anyone share that?
And your school teams might feel the same way too.
Right.
You know, how did you feel about this as you sort of set into this task?
We were attendance as well, and we had the same goal at 94% attendance. Our focus was elementary, and we focused mainly on having a family and leader dinner, including teachers, families, things like that. But really 25 minutes, because we were also kind of explaining to people in our group kind of our processes of how we address attendance and things like that. So actually we were kind of constrained by time, essentially.
Yeah.
And
So
when your team meets, you're going to have the same challenge. They're going to have
Right.
need time, and they're probably going to get it almost finished because they're going to be doing a lot of talking too. But the only saving grace is that a lot of the preliminary information is going to come right out of their plans. But like you say, the talking about the activities and trying to come up with what needs to be done, that's going to take a little bit more time. So during your training with them, like you say, you're going to give them more than 25 minutes to write that plan, because it's only going to be a draft and it's not going to be finished when they look at it, because we asked them to go back and firm it up.
So in a way there's going to be more time and less time. So usually this work that has your teams, your school teams, will draft their 1-year action plan as a team. Compared to what you were just talking about, Tony, obviously they're all going to be from the same school. So they will have some shared knowledge about what they are already doing, and your guidance before the afternoon where they're going to write the plan will really help them zero in. And just like Jason's group did, they can use the web activity as a preliminary kind of chart. It saves them time to do one of the pages of their plan. Usually we give school teams about 20 minutes per page of these 4-page plans in the afternoon of a workshop. So they will draft the 4 pages, and as Brenda said, they may not finish completely, but we're going to get to that in a little minute. But you're quite right. It takes a bit of time to sort of zero in on the task and settle down and get started and draw from their school improvement plan the goals that they've set. But it can be done because they do know each other and they know their school's kind of work. So part of it is harder than what you had to do, because they're going to write 4 pages and you had only 1. And part of it is easier for them to do because they are aware of goals in their school improvement plan that teachers work on every day. So let's go on to this last kind of reflection, Brenda.
So what would you, as a facilitator, how do you think, working with your schools, what would the schools say to you as the facilitator or your district facilitator, what they need you to do or not do while they're trying to write this 4-page plan at the workshop? What do you think might come out of it? Hey, Courtney.
I have a question, and then maybe this will spark some conversation. But I know a lot of these really cool ideas that come from other schools, like the family dinner with principals and teachers, like some of these ideas, you're like, yes, this is awesome. How often do the schools vet these ideas to parents in the community to see is this something they would like before? Like, I guess I'm having a hard time with the balance of, schools have the autonomy to implement programs and things, but as a community member, trying to support, like, how can we be of assistance of of figuring out like, this is what we're hearing from the community that the parents would really like. Like, how do you, I guess that's my question. I'm stuck in this.
No, that's a very good question, Courtney. The planning work that your school teams will do as a team will be able, at least in part, to reflect what the parents in the community and community partners know and want to do, because parents are on the team. And they can speak up and say, you know, that'll never fly. That won't fly here. Nobody's going to be able to come to X, Y, or Z. Or they may say, you know, we have a lot of parents who speak X languages, and if we do that, we are going to need X, Y, and Z. And maybe you can, or maybe you cannot provide what they really would need. You'd go on to find a better, more reflecting the community activity. And so there are, this is, you know, here for your leadership work that we're trying to help you see, how would you even conduct a team training day? You are all leaders from varied places, but you may not really know the ins and outs of their particular school and their particular need. That's why after the break today, we're going to talk about the team itself and who should be on it and what you really would want to do. So none of this must be sort of out of the blue sky imposed. It's going to be here for our workshop. You're the creative people who are generating ideas as if you were a team or if you were thinking about a school, but you don't know what, you know, if you had 10 schools, they'd all have different kinds of reactions to any one of these kinds of ideas, and they'll come up with their own ideas of what's going to work for them. So that's a very, very important question that just puts in the spotlight. What we're doing here is to prepare you for conducting your team training with schools yesterday and today. But tomorrow we're going to talk about your leadership role because you're going to have to generate and be aware of what's going on in many different communities and many different schools. So that's a good kind of question that sort of links what we have been trying to do with you here and what you should have been thinking about, like for the question number 3, what was most difficult about this? You don't know that that's going to be a great idea. Some of these ideas actually we do know work pretty much everywhere. You still have to tweak them to reflect your community, but we've had many schools and different communities have author visits, as Allison's example gave about reading, bringing in an author of some kind and talking to kids. We know that that pretty much can work anywhere, but and your schools may or may not generate that kind of thing. So this is not your program in each school, it's the school's program in each school. And you're there as an expert to sort of provide some ideas or provide some kind of incentives or light the fires that are under the schools that haven't been lit yet because of some really creative ideas that you have. But our work yesterday and today is not about you creating the best program that you can. It's to help you see how your schools are going to have this kind of challenge to create a program linked to their school improvement goals, just like Brenda mentioned, and do so in a way that's going to engage more, if not all, parents, some of whom have not been engaged before. So this is a challenge. And I think you're quite right on the last question that Brenda asked, you know, what would you want to do or not do? You're saying, well, it seems to me we do not want to tell them what to do because we think it's a good idea. And of course, that's going to be true. You are not going to be telling them what they must do because somebody else thought it was a good idea or wrote it up or you read about it. But you can give ideas. You could see that the practices and examples that we wove in yesterday into the 6 types or into how we're, heard or what we know or learned about from our schools. Those were ideas that came from every which way, not necessarily every single school that, we've worked with. I think, we've been active in over 5,000 schools. There are probably 5,000 ideas floating around in there. So a very good question to end this section, I think. So I'm going to continue, Brenda, with a couple of thoughts of what you're going to do or what is left to do as a leader for partnerships when you're going to bring your teams together. So when you have your workshop with school-based teams, we have some guidelines that will help your schools. As somebody said, they didn't have enough time. Well, no one ever has enough time at any one of the workshops that you might conduct. But what we do know is if we're going to ask school teams to spend a day working on a plan for the year, that's a good investment of time. So we give a day to learn about the research and to spend some time as a team to think through some ideas. And by having a draft plan, by the end of the day, people really feel they have accomplished really something that they wouldn't accomplish if you just had an hour to talk about how important family engagement is. They already know this is an important topic. And so we want to make sure that the guidelines that you give for the draft plan get people to be efficient in the use of their time. And what you will be able to tell them is that if they focus on the 4 pages of the plan, and by the way, the last page that Brenda mentioned to you, page 4 on the climate of good partnerships, everybody that we work with has that as their 4th page. So you can't have a great partnership program if people don't feel welcome at the school. And so we make page 4 of the plan, which this template is in your handbook or the handbook that you get, or if you join us as a partner, we will provide for you. But the template is there, and page 4 is actually written out at the top for you. This goal is about a good climate of partnership, and then the same structure that Brenda showed you in the plan is there. So if you ask your schools to take a little slip of paper and write down the 4 goals that are going to be the topics of your 4 pages, that sort of gets them already to begin to focus when they have about 20 minutes per page. Secondly, we ask them to filter before they start to write or discuss the ideas, because some of the things that they already do in their schools on family engagement, or that they've mentioned at least hastily in their school improvement plan, can really be used on each of the 4 pages if it focuses in the same way that they've chosen the 4 goals. So let's take group 1 that we heard from. Let's say that academic goal 1 was about improving students' reading skills, scores, and attitudes. That's pretty much happening in every school in the country. And so if schools chose reading as their first academic goal, then your guidelines for them would be, well, if you already have some family engagement mentioned in your school improvement plan, and usually it's just a sentence, we are going to help parents listen to their children read from something that's at their grade level, maybe 5 minutes at night, or if they're going to help their youngster read 20 minutes for pleasure at home, that could be a perfectly fine activity to put on page 1 for reading. And if you don't want people to think you're asking them to throw out good activities that they're doing, but that they can think about what they're already doing, what they already have planned, and what they need to add, new practices that you've generated by your extensive kind of knowledge and incentives and exuberance at your workshop that helps people think, just this could be fun. And it is fun. These activities can actually add joy to your schools. So having some good ideas about reading and reading the same book is one of them that really people love to do that. I really did like the school that said, well, we have a music teacher. He's going to help the classes write a song about the book they chose. Sometimes it was not everyone reading the same book. Sometimes it was a grade level choice or a classroom choice. And there are all kinds of variations on that theme, but they don't have to throw out good ideas that are already in their school improvement plan. They just have to flesh them out so that the details Brenda showed you on the form, the planning form, are accounted for, because if they are, there is more than half a chance that the activity will be conducted, that it will be conducted well, and that families will become engaged this year, and that you'll see how to improve it if you choose to improve the program and that activity next year. You recall the very first activity we did together in jumping hurdles had the question, how would you improve this successful activity if you tried it again? And that's one of the ways that your schools will also improve what they do. And then finally, for the 20-minute period for each of the pages of the plan, your teams will fill in the details that were in that template of, well, which activity is it, when it is going to be held, who's going to be in charge, what resources do you need? And if people go about that in a productive way, they will leave your workshop feeling it has been a great day, a productive day, and that they're halfway there. But you have things to do to follow up the workshop, because they aren't all going to finish. And even if they finished, they still have to share their draft back at their school to get input from others. Otherwise, people think, well, who do they think they are? They just telling us what to do, or do they want input from our school improvement team, or from our PTA or PTO, or from the teachers, from the faculty meeting? How can we help this team for partnerships also take into account what other people at the school either think they could do or say, gee, that's a great idea, we'll help with that, and all the kinds of ways that this becomes a school program. And then your teams, the action teams, will make their final revisions of a final plan, give copies to you as a district or organization leader, and give copies to every member who is on the action team, which we're going to talk about right after the break. And we want you to encourage them to publicize whatever ends up being the final plan. That might go into the last newsletter from the school to parents of the school year before the next school year starts. It might be on your website for each school, or on the district website, across schools, or however you can help them publicize their school-based plan. So you can see that there's a kind of a hope that what happens in your workshop translates and becomes a kind of a guide for the school year, so that the action team for partnerships knows that you're there to help them do the best they can to start off on the path to partnership. And you may think of other follow-up activities that work for the schools that you work with, or for the groups that you work with. So these are your follow-up workshop activities. We have, in this little first space today, put you to a very hard task to try to write a one page of the one-year action plan for partnerships, and to see how you feel about that process, so that you know what your schools will be doing in your workshop in the afternoon when it's their turn to apply what we talked about yesterday, and you will have talked about in the morning of your workshop. So are there any questions at this point about this part of the school-based team training workshop that we really are showing you how your workshop is going to go.
Joyce, there was a question, comment by Allison. I hope you don't mind me speaking for yourself.
Oh,
Speaking
please.
for you, Allison, about whether there have been schools or how many schools need to get school board approval for, excuse me, things like the action for creating an action team in the school. My response is that usually because it's within the school, it's the principals are the one, it's principal discretion, and I've not heard of most school boards needing this, but
Right. I have,
results may vary depending because,
well, we've been doing this for now 28 years, starting with a small number of schools and growing up now more than 300 or 400 across the country. I have never heard of a school that needed the school board to allow them to have a team or a committee to work together to engage families. In part, almost every district, and therefore the schools that are in them, have been given an official written policy by the federal government, by their states, by the districts often, that tells them you are supposed to have a family engagement or family and community engagement program that engages every family of all students in ways that help students do better in school. And that's really all we're talking about, is how to help you help them meet the directives of a policy, because they all practically everyone we've ever surveyed agrees with the policy. They just don't know how to go about it. And that's your task, is to help them fulfill the policy that is there. Having said that, the question that came to Steve also reminds me that our strongest district leaders across years have been those who once or twice a year give a report to their school board. Go to a school board meeting, get on the agenda, and let the school board know what their office does to help families meet the official policy, and also to let the school board know the progress that they're making from year to year in reaching all families. It's a wonderful addition to the leadership roles that you will play, to be able to get on, we say get on the principal's agenda once a month to bring up what's happening in family engagement. If you can get the 5 minutes or 10 minutes of time at a staff meeting to help that happen, or help your school's chairperson of the action team get on the principal's agenda, get on the school board agenda twice a year, even once a year, be a good idea. And it helps your district know what your office does and why you are so valuable. Sometimes that even leads to a school board or superintendent or supervisor supporting an extra staff person for your office, which often is needed in large districts. So yeah, so school board approval to do the teamwork at a school is typically, I've not heard about that, but talking with the school board, yes, I've heard a lot about that, and it's very valuable.
Joyce, what we have heard is that there are school board members who are on some of the teams.
Oh, really?
Their children are in the schools. So, and no one is going to push it away, because it helps with Title I funding that they get. That's the Title I portion of what the schools have to do. So everyone's going to jump on board with it. And it shouldn't be a political issue on that. I don't think you're going to run into that, because like Joyce said, there's a policy in place for engagement. Everyone knows about engaging families in the community, and what the research says happens academically when they are engaged. So I think we're not going to run across that, but just to help them to see this is what we're doing. A lot of our Title I schools can attest to that and tell you those stories.
That's really interesting, Brenda. And it's not just the school board members who become active on the teams. You know, it might be the school nurse who's in a different school and gets on their own child's team, and there's all kinds of ways that that kind of work happens. But it's important, again, to talk with the school board. They don't know how valuable your office is. And we have had leaders who are in your place who for several years could not get an aide or an extra staff member to help in a large district. And then after they really help people see what they are doing, somehow they get that approval to get an extra person, which really can be very helpful. So those are good questions. That's an interesting one, Steve. I'm glad that that came up. This section that we just finished on helping you see what is it going to take to help your schools write a one-year action plan for partnerships based on goals in their own school improvement plan, tailored to their grade levels and school levels. So a preschool plan will look different from an elementary, middle, and high school plan, and how you're going to weave that into a day-long workshop so they have time to at least get a draft plan is leadership topic number 3 in your competency checklist. So here's what that really says to you. I understand topic 3, schools are going to write a one-year action plan. I will encourage school teams to evaluate and improve their plans over time from year to year. And our leaders are going to guide district leaders, that's you, to work with their schools so that this happens in any or every school that really wants to meet their official policy statements. So if you think that you can help schools to do this work in your workshop in the afternoon after covering the 6 types and what results means and how to have goal-linked partnership practices like we did yesterday, then check off, put a little check by leadership topic number 3. And we will be talking later today about how we're going to collect your competency checklist so we can acknowledge what you have been learning and doing really so well with. We love your locations and your groups and your Zoom room activities, because you've been really very thoughtful and very collegial and very good partners in this short two days that we've known you. Okay, folks, we're going to get started again in the really last content section of our workshop together. You know, people always tell me, oh, Joyce, I know about your 6 types of engagement, or I've learned about your theory of overlapping spheres of influence, and all of that is good. But the underlying essential of your partnership programs that you're going to be building over time in your location is the action team. So I want to talk with you briefly in a short way about the action team structure. And we have made awards in the past of schools that had really well-functioning action teams. This is one of them in Seattle. And this group was always working on inclusion. How do we reach all families? They're a multi-year award winner, and they've really shown that they can create an action team that you can see they're all smiling. And some of them brought their kids because without the students, there is no partnership program. So they've really shown that they can really extend their team and teamwork to reach all families in a very diverse community. So we're going to talk a little bit about team structure. This is competency checklist number 4, and we'll come back to it. Here's our friend, the Baltimore Oracle, and he says, maybe the Baltimore Oracle might be a she says, I don't know. District organization and state or regional leaders need to know that a team, the action team for partnership, or however it's called in your location, we call it an action team for partnerships and ATP. So we have one word that would go across the country, but different places name their teams however they like, as long as they know what they're talking about, that it's an action team for partnerships, you know, and not a team for dancing. It's okay. So the action team uses the framework of 6 types of engagement to write a comprehensive plan, the one-year action plan, linked to their school improvement plan. So here's where all the pieces we've been talking about really comes back together. So who's on the team? You're going to guide your schools before they come to your workshop to send the right people to your workshop to hear about what it's going to take, what's the research base, and what they're going to do to plan a program that's already probably mentioned in their school improvement plan. So we ask each team to have at least 2 or 3 teachers, at least means or more, 2 or 3 parents or family members. The principal must be on the team. If a principal does not want partnerships to happen in his or her school, it is not going to happen. And the best way to help that really be clear is that the principal is a member of, not always the leader of, the action team for partnerships. It makes a statement, and it also helps the principal. Some principals think they're in charge of everything about family engagement, and they're the only ones who have to connect with parents. And that, of course, we've seen over these past 2 days is not the case. A lot of people can help the principal have an easier life. The principal's job may be the hardest job in the universe. And I've had friends who are principals, and I really know that that is often the case. But with a team, with an action team for partnerships of teachers, parents, the principal, other members of the school can be added. And at the high school level, we ask 2 or 1 or 2 students to be on the team, which we learned about in our high school studies is very important. When you have a team, the principal's life becomes easier. And there are many examples of that in our literature and in our work and in a book that Steve did with our colleague Mavis Sanders. If you're concerned or interested in details beyond what we talk about in these next 10 minutes or so, chapter 3 of our handbook, which you will either get or have gotten, chapter 3 is all about the team and people's roles and why it's important. And we're going to touch upon a few of those kinds of issues. Here's another one of our award-winning sites. It's a preschool in Ohio that has earned a couple of our award years. The Day School Early Learning Center, however they're called. And you can see again, they're all smiling because family engagement brings joy to schools. And it really helps people see this as a great place to be, to work, and to help children grow. So the members of the team may include the leaders, and we ask you to guide your schools to have co-chairs. Co-chairs are really helpful as leaders because people move around in schools so much. It's our biggest challenge that people leave their school in the middle of the year, at the end of the year, before they're really got all their plans in place. Co-chairs help because they back each other up and they continue or sustain a program when things get a bit out of control. And other members of the team may serve as leaders of different activities. So you saw in the one-year action plan, there was space for 4 on each page of different types of engagement and different activities. And we asked you today to try to fill in 2 that we heard from our volunteer number 2 that their group actually filled in 2 lines going across the planning page. different people on the team would be leaders or helpers on those activities. And you remember there was a column on the planning page for who is the leader, who is helping. And we like to diversify who on the team are leading what kinds of activities so that we distribute leadership and not one person is doing everything, because we know they will burn out or raise concerns. And so we want a really well-functioning action team. The terms of service we have not and cannot study, so we really say this, what we've seen is if people have a 2 or 3 year term, up to you, up to your schools, the kind of appointment is renewable. People want to continue in a position and they're able to do so and they've been good leaders. That's fine. If people leave the team, which they will do, that their place is taken by someone in the same position. So if a parent leaves the team because they're graduating to the next school with their child, then they are replaced with another parent. If a teacher leaves because they have moved locations to a new community or have been promoted to a district position, they are replaced by a teacher, and so on. All of the features of teamwork are flexible. So in the photos you just saw, you saw a gigantic team in Seattle because they added people at each grade level, and they added parents, and they added teachers so that they were representing the diversity in their community. And at the preschool level, you saw slightly enlarged team with teachers from each of the cohorts in that particular preschool. What does the team do? You, as expert for your school teams, want to know that your teams have only 4, I think it is, basic, important, critical chores. First, as you know, we've mentioned many times, they're going to select those 4 goals each year for their action plan that become the agenda for the year. That's going to change from year to year. It can change, but they pick the 4 goals for their action plan for partnerships. They're going to write the plan just like you tried to do the 1 page. They're going to do the 4 pages at your workshop. Then the chore is to implement. You know, we can have a plan written, but it's got to be implemented and evaluated. How did it go? What could be better? Who did we reach? Who did we not reach? And then you're going to guide them to continually improve from 1 year to the next. Those are the 4 main tasks of an action team. Not so much, but each one very important, especially the last bullet, because we're not talking about magic. We're talking about working to engage all families over time. And so we continually improve the quality of the practices, the outreach to parents, the results that occur when we do a good job, and so on. Here's another one of our award winners at the intermediate or middle school level in South Carolina. And again, you can see that they are all happy souls, because it really is a good way to engage parents. You really can't tell on this picture who's the teacher, who's the parents. Could be the guys in the back, could be the ladies in the front. We don't know from the picture, but we know they're working together. So people ask us, what's the difference? We have a school improvement team already. Why do we need an action team for partnerships? And you should know and be able to address that question because it will come up. And so we know that if you put them side by side, they have different responsibilities. The school improvement team, the SIT, let's call it, is really in charge of all the actions in the school, all categories, all kinds of programs and interests they might write or approve. the overall school improvement plan. The action team for partnership is focused like a laser just on family engagement. And they really are going to oversee the implementation of their outreach to all parents. It's all they're going to do. They're not looking at the facilities on the playground, and they're not looking at whether we need a new reading specialist or teacher. They might have an opinion about that, but their goal is always to be focused on outreach to all families. The school improvement team meets monthly to discuss all the aspects of the school. The ATP also meets monthly, but just to look at what was scheduled last month, how did that go? What are we doing this month? Who needs to be in charge and helping? How do we make sure that what we planned gets implemented? We heard several of you mentioned, it takes a lot to figure out how to get an activity really underway and to get the supplies that you need and the timetable and the rooms that are necessary and so on. So you were onto this notion that the action team at the school level must be well focused on what they have in their plan, how to make it happen. The school improvement team hears committee reports from everybody in the school. They might have a financial committee, they might have a teacher quality committee, whatever it is, and they're going to hear reports and make that part of the next school improvement plan, perhaps. The action team might actually report to the school improvement team twice a year or even monthly if they have a member who sits and crisscrosses both groups. So it's not as if they're independent of each other, but they really do their jobs separately from each other. The action team for partnership has their co-chairs. They meet monthly, they work on the plan, and periodically they would report or ask questions of or seek support from the school improvement team. So that should help you because this question will come up. And you can write in your chat box questions that you have about this kind of separation of task and clear responsibilities. Now, in your handouts, I sent to you what we call Activity 4. We are not going to do this right now, but we are going to talk a little bit about it. In your workshop, right before lunch, this is a good topic to help people see from the morning how the work that you've been talking about actually helps them think through the kinds of questions that they need to answer about their school improvement team. After all, the school improvement team is who's attending your workshop. Hopefully the whole team, 2 or 3 teachers, 2 or 3 parents, the principal, and at the high school level, 1 or 2 students, and whomever else is on the team. They are going to be at your workshop to hear and to experience what is the research base, how do we use it. So at your workshop, we ask you to conduct this activity, which we are going to only do as a group discussion right now. And you'll see there are 3 questions. First, who will be the members and the co-chairs of your team? So they sent people to your workshop and they need to know, okay, out of all these people, who's going to be our co-chairs of the team and who is going to be on the team. And there's a spot on this activity where they can write their own names, who's going to be the members of the team. Then those who came to the workshop, they're members of your teams, we hope. And they can look around the table at your workshop or through their Zooming and say, who's missing? Who needs to be on this team? Who can we add to the people who are here, who we want to have as members of the team for partnerships? And that question will help you help them set up their full team when they go back to their school. The second question, when will your whole team meet? Time is of the essence. It's really the coin of the realm in schools. Very difficult to find time for anything within a teacher's day, a principal's day. Parents are busy people. So which day are we going to meet once a month? What time can we meet? Where will we meet? Will this be online? How will we meet? And if people are not there, how are we going to get the information from that meeting to those who are absent? Through minutes or through a recorded time or what? And so this is a topic that your team who's there can discuss before lunch and before you send them and become part of the writing process in the afternoon. Look at the third question. Which groups need to know about your team's work? And how often should you report to any of these? And how are we going to do that? People are busy. And so the notion of what the chairpersons do, the co-chairs, what the members of the team can do to help connect to various groups is really important. So for our own discussion here now, just for a couple of minutes, if you look at the groups listed under section 3, question 3, what would you hope your schools would see as important connections that they need to make in your location in order to give credibility to their team, to the plan, to the work of outreach to all families? Who would you want your school teams to report to or talk with periodically? What do you see on that, on those 6 boxes there that speak to you?
I don't know if there's a particular group that stands out, but I think for me, knowing that there's going to be a set line item on the agenda to talk about ATP in each one of those meetings. So making sure that we're having conversations with each one of those groups. So if there is a faculty meeting, there's a designated point where they're talking about what needs to be communicated to ATP, you know, what are some of the things that have happened. So just making sure that each one of those organizations or teams is talking about the work that we're doing.
So we should give Anthony a gold star because he saw the trick in the question. Of course, all of these groups are important. That was a really good way to put it, Anthony. And to work with these places, I think that's an excellent way to say it, to have some place on the agenda of each of these groups in some way that has the focus on the work that's going on to reach all families in ways that support student learning, student development, student behavior, and so on. I would love to see that happen in all the schools who are represented here today. I want you to turn your attention to the red one at the bottom, the second from the bottom, because sometimes that one, of course, we don't have control over what Anthony's good answer suggested, but it does mean that we have to begin to figure out how to make contact with the local media about what is happening in that particular school with that team, those teachers, those parents and children, that is worthy of their positive attention. If there was a problem in your schools, how quickly would the local media be there to cover a problem that is existing? Anthony, you want to answer that question? How quickly would the media be there if there was trouble?
They probably would know that something happened before it was even reported.
And that is really true. But if we have a team that is communicating with the local media, including the foreign language media outlets that the people in parents in your schools listen to and read on a regular basis, that is about the positive activities for family engagement that are going on. Those media representatives come, see, enjoy, and write it up. And we see it over and over again. So when your teams are in your workshop, try to point that out to them, because it really enlivens the whole kind of creative work that's going on over the course of a year in that school or that school or that school, as opposed to once a year somebody seeing that something good is going on with family engagement or community partnerships. It's much more regular than that. And yet much of our media tries to highlight one thing that's happening in a place as if it's the only thing that really is going on in our schools. So if each of your teams is aware of that, and the co-chairs or members of the team have their assignment to do that kind of connection and informing, it really enlivens your programs. Any questions about the team activities that we just talked about or their responsibilities? So this is leadership topic number 4. We're getting close to the end there. On your competency checklist, it says, I understand leadership topic number 4, how to organize an action team. I know each school-based team will plan, implement, and oversee a family and community engagement program. I am ready. That means you. I am ready to make presentations on this topic and guide schools to build their action team for partnerships. So if you've got the point, you have to have a team, you might know a lot. We don't want to keep that knowledge in your office or in your head. The whole point of this work together over these 3 days is to help you get your knowledge to work for all the schools that are in your projects or in your district or location. So you would check number 4, I can think about a team, because that really is critical for the success of your program. It isn't what you know, because you have all been very clear. You are all smart people, very articulate, very clever and creative, and you've been great contributors, but got to get to the team so that what you know becomes part of what they do. Our last topic for the day really is about what you can use from NNPS anytime you want if you are a partner in our work. And as I mentioned early on, we're in the transition period for what we call NNPS 2.0, which we will share with you and talk a little bit about more tomorrow, or send you some information. But our Baltimore Oracle says, use NNPS as your home base so that your district, organization, region, or schools are connected nationally. That is not going to change, and we will be the home base for what we hope will be a network of networks. Your network in your location is something you build and you develop, whether it's in New Hampshire or in Indiana or wherever we have wonderful partners in South Carolina, in Washington State, in Louisiana, wherever they are, their leaders build a network of partnership schools in their location who know what's happening in their area and share best practices, identify challenges, solve problems, and ultimately, we hope, engage all families in productive ways so that their children do better in school. The whole thing is really about kids and their successes and progress through the grades, all the way up to graduation from high school. It's a very big agenda. If we have resources that will help you, that's our job. We can help you. We can give them to you. You can use them. You can adapt them. And really, if they're useful to you, that makes our work really promising too. So we are your professional development partner, and you can become a professional development partner under our new structure. And all you have to do is ask for what we call a preliminary agreement for the 24-25 school year. And that's what we will share with you, either if you ask for it or we will follow up after tomorrow so that you know what is available to you. We ask you to use the structured approaches that we've been talking about, but customize them to your location. Every place is different, populations differ. We have to really be thoughtful about customizing or tailoring to place. And we ask you to participate actively. We have in the 2.0 menu of services a series of activities throughout a school year that really give you a chance to hear from us, hear from each other, grow your knowledge, extend what you understand and what's being shared in new research, in our own research and in other people's research. It's a big field now. There's really too many. Sometimes I say there's too much information out there. What we try to do is boil it down so that if you and your schools and your districts use the basics, then anything that comes along, and it will, because there's lots of people now working on lots of aspects of family engagement. If you have the basics in place, you can decide that's useful, that's not. That's useful, I'll put that in what I do, that's not. But to make those choices, you really have to get started with the basics. And to evaluate progress in your location every year. In our new work, we will provide what we've been building over many years now, an easy-to-use questionnaire that will help you monitor progress, even if you are only working in a small district with a few schools. So we're sort of changing how we work to best support leaders like you for partnerships, so that you have a network locally that really knows what you are doing, what each other's doing, and that you really grow a partnership program that works in your location. What can you expect? We do have a comprehensive handbook for our professional development partners, and we will send a copy to those who join our work. And we have on-call technical assistance at any time for our partners. They can ask, Brenda loves to talk partnerships. I love to talk partnerships. Steve is a great resource and loves to talk partnerships. And we have a really great website. I'm going to try a little task here that usually our partner, Rachel, would conduct. And we've tried to see if I can learn the technology here. So I'm going to try. Here's our website. I'm going to show you a couple of sections because it's a really chock-full place. And you can use it. And it's open to anybody. You don't have to be a partner officially to use our website, but under NNPS model, for example, it talks about all the sections that we've been working on these couple of days, the action team and what it looks like and what it's about, the framework of 6 types of involvement. Really, we can check into it, and we actually have some posters that put these 6 types out in print for you if you want them, or you can print them right off here without even getting to our posters. There's a district model, an organization model, and a state model, and you can look at that anytime, check it out. All this information is also in our handbook. We are not trying to keep secrets. We are trying to help you become super partners and super leaders of partnership program development. In success stories, this is a great resource. Every year for many years now, 28 or 27, Brenda and people in her position have edited what we call promising partnership practices. This is available to you right now. You just click on the PDF for the 2023 version of this ebook that it is, And what you'll see is that there are practices from all of these locations, including some we've mentioned over the course of these 2 days. The one that I talked about earlier after Allison talked is called Books on Parade, which was on page 2. This was a read, everybody reading the same book, and the teachers from the music department and so on. And here was the culminating activity of Books on Parade that we found so inviting and so important for helping students at every grade level choose a book and then finding all kinds of ways to read it and celebrate it. It really was a kind of a great activity. So you can explore promising partnership practices. So our website has a lot of information that you can see in all of the sections, and we invite you to visit it. Don't have to be an official partner to do so. You just have to click on www.partnershipschools.org. We have many tools to evaluate the quality of partnership programs that we will share with you with our partner sites and professional development. All of that we've been talking about, even this workshop, helps schools meet the Title I requirements in ESSA for family engagement. As a network of networks, we hope to be able to share best practices that are across the country from your network and other networks of partnership schools. So let's review. What are basic in our schools? What do you need to have in mind that you're going to become the expert for your schools in establishing their action team? Action team, most important. It's not your work. It's not the principal's work. It's not one person's work, but a group of teachers, parents, the administrators, and at the high school level students create the action plan for partnerships linked to school improvement goals. Use the framework of 6 types of involvement or engagement, because that's how parents become involved in different ways and different places. Have a budget for their activities. Make sure teams meet at least monthly. Committees for different activities may meet more often if something is scheduled in the month of October or November. It may take a couple of extra meetings, and evaluate at the end of each year to make a better program the next year. Your job is to help your action teams for partnerships be as good, as smart as you are on family engagement, and have outreach increasingly to reach all families. All means all. And how we get that to happen is not magic. It's not all at once. It's not in 1 year's time. We go from wherever the schools are starting from to the next best level of partnership. And really, people can make a great deal of progress in 1, 2, 3 years' time. Here's some of our resources that are available to you. The top left is our handbook, which we provide when you become a partner, or you can get that from Corwin Press or from Amazon for that matter. Look in the middle section. This is the book from Steve that I mentioned on how important principles are in this work. The 2 kitty catty corner activities are a book on multicultural partnerships and one on family reading nights. In both of these books are activities for family connections and meetings and family nights in English and in Spanish, so that people really have a way to engage all families in the same way and in their own language. And then the bottom right is a textbook that Steve and I just updated last year for college coursework on family and community engagement and the research base. These resources are from our center, and they are available to you now. The Promising Practice book we just showed you on the website. We have summaries of 18 of those books, topics over the years. See the blue written topics of goal-linked family engagement in all of those areas, in reading, in math, in science, and writing, that help you become experts in those areas and that you can make available to your schools. Our partners in the National Network of Partnership Schools will have access to that and be able to share it with any or all of their districts and schools at no extra cost. And then over on the right is our tips materials that we talked a little bit about yesterday of interactive homework. Again, these are, I think there's over 600 examples of interactive homework that teachers and we have developed in elementary reading, early reading, K-3, math, K-6, K-5, and in the middle grades in language arts, science, and math from grade 6 to 8. These are available, and we have them right now. They're free to members of our network or free to partners in our NNPS 2.0. But they're a great resource to teachers who want to have assignments for students that help them talk to their families about what they're learning in class. We don't ask parents to teach elementary math. We don't ever ask them to teach middle grades science or reading or language arts. Parents cannot be the teachers of children when the teachers are trying to teach the children, and they don't want to be. And many of them really cannot really do that work. They have work of their own. They are busy people. So TIPS Interactive Homework is a resource, and we can help you with that. We've just talked about resources in family engagement, and that completes our checklist. So I'm going to come back to questions, but to complete the checklist, let's do that together first. The final box at the bottom of the page says, overall, I am ready to present the information from this workshop to educators, parents, and community groups, and begin to train school action teams for partnerships. In other words, these 2 days, yesterday and today, are to get you ready to run your own workshop. You can use our materials, you can call to ask for help, you can do however it is to get to your school action teams for partnerships. It also says down here, if I have questions, I will call my colleagues at NNPS for advice, and we are here to help you. Well, we're coming to the end of time here, and we want you to ask the questions that have occurred over the past 2 days. So we're going to give you a minute to put your questions in the chat box now, from things you learned today to guide your schools on writing an action plan, or to organize their team, or to know the resources that may assist you, or any questions from yesterday that have not been answered. So I'm gonna be quiet for a minute as you write your questions that remain in your head. What's still puzzling you? Put it in the chat box now. Do we have questions or?
None yet.
No.
You've done a fantastic job. They don't have questions.
Everybody understands all of the parts we've talked about.
Yes.
Anybody want to speak up and open your mic and your video and just ask a question without writing it? Otherwise, we're going to assume everything was so clear. Allison, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's more, if it's not like a procedural one, but I just wanted to hear from the team. This was really helpful, and I think, you know, I'd love to also, I'm not speaking for New Hampshire as a whole, but just some of the schools that or districts rather, I work at more of the district level. And one of the things that keeps coming back to me is we can't take on another program. We can't take on anything else. We are stressed, we're under-resourced. And I understand that one of the cells of this program is that it's integrated into a school improvement plan. But even with that, have you any tips or tricks you have for really getting this thought through the door with schools or with districts?
So that is the most important question we ever hear, because
And frequent.
because everybody really is, schools are such busy and challenged places. Really, what we hope you will do as you work in New Hampshire from your Family Engagement Center is we are really trying to guide folks to start with the district level leaders and identify, you'll see tomorrow that we have a kind of a recipe for how to go about doing this. So your question sort of prepares us for tomorrow, but in short, we want you at the state or statewide level to really know who are your district leaders for partnerships. Over the past 7-8 years, what we have seen is more and more districts do have an office for family engagement. A lot of them call it FACE, Family and Community Engagement, or FACE office. And in New Hampshire, or for our partners in Indiana, you all have a lot of districts. And really, there's no way to work with all of them at once. So you're going to want to find what we might call the readiest, those who are ready to show the others that this is part of their official policies for excellent schoolwork, that the district has an office, has a leader or a leader more than one, a team of some kind. And if it's not in the FACE office, it may be in the Federal Programs Office. It may be in the Student Services Office. And you'll see all about this tomorrow. So you are very correct, and so is everybody. Everybody's busy, everybody's too busy, but this has been an assignment to do this work and to get Title I funds to do the work and to have a family engagement program. They may as well have one that's well organized and that can be improved from year to year with your help, with your leadership. They don't know that they really can do this and that you will be there to guide them. Steve, did you have something to add?
Yeah. I think one of the things we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and when you go through things like our starting points inventory, this is work that schools, for example, are already doing. Right? As Joyce said yesterday, nobody is starting at zero. So the question is, do they want to be able to do it better? And do they want to have a system or a structure in place that lets them think a little bit more carefully, be a little bit more proactive and strategic and thoughtful about what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish with this,
and who they're reaching,
and who they're not reaching, and how to connect. And that's where I think you can build. It's like, look for the readiest, as Joyce said, but also remind people that they're doing this. And most educators would in fact agree that partnering with families, partnering with community organizations and community groups and supporters really does help them get to the kind of achievement outcomes that we expect and look for in all of our schools and with all of our families. And this is really just sort of a way for them to take their already existing work up another level.
I'd like to add to that.
Go ahead, Brenda.
I'd like to add that they, instead of looking at it as extra work, looking at it as the work, because you have to do it anyway. So why not work smarter as opposed to harder? And to help them to organize the work that they're doing so that they can see exactly what it is you're doing, and you can actually pick out the results that you're making and see the fruits of your labor over time. But if they look at it as another program I've got to do, no, this is a way of thinking, a way of life. It becomes, because then you start thinking everything you think becomes a part of this work. And if you look at the Title I schools, they have to do this anyway under the Title I regs. So why not be more proactive in being strategic at the work that you're doing, rather than just being all over the place and not necessarily knowing whether you're getting the results that you say you want to get by the way you're doing it? This organized approach helps them to think strategically at each level. My team, my plan, how do families want to be involved using the 6 types, in a way of evaluating and improving your work from year to year. That in itself is a big sell to help them understand that, hey, you know what, that makes sense. I can work smarter as opposed to harder.
And I think just to reinforce that, that's all good thinking on both parts, is they don't know that you are there to help them. So they may know that this is part of what they are asked to do. They may know that they're already started to do something to try to reach all families, but they don't necessarily know you are there to help them, or that there is a research base that will help you help them, and that they can be part of a national picture as well as being part of a local picture. I'm going to leave it at that because your question is critical, but there really are answers that you can give, because right now they don't know how you and we can be of help to them to make it, as Brenda says, a little easier to accomplish. And as Steve said, to meet the regs that really are there anyway. They're doing it anyway, but they really may not know where they're going or not where they're heading. And they do know this for reading. I like to use the analogy of like reading, that it is a permanent part of their work, that it is expected, that they get better every year. There's been research on how to do reading well for over 100 years. We've been working at this for only 25, 28 years. But there's still controversy about how to make a best reading program. And there will be questions of how to make a best family engagement program, but you will be there to help them solve those questions. Any others who'd like to speak up with a verbal question, if not a written one, before we finalize our work together today? I'm going to take that as a no. I'm going to say that we all were so clear that you're going to think about all of this stuff. Let's talk about 3 easy next steps. First, you're going to complete the checklist of competencies. Send that in to Brenda at nnps@jhu.edu, our email address, and she will send back to you our certificate of completion for the training that you've been doing for these 2 days. This just covers the first 2 days for working with school-based teams. We want you to reflect on what we've talked about today. You've been very, very thoughtful members of our work groups over the past 2 days, and we really appreciate your thoughtfulness and your kind of focused attention in the breakout rooms. But before we leave today, we collected all your aha moments from yesterday, and we will be reviewing them and thinking about how that tells us something about what we've been offering you. But if you could do it again, add an aha moment from today's work on the school-based action plan for partnerships and the development of the team itself, the formation and completion of a full team of teachers, parents, and administrators, and any question that's still on your mind that you were reticent to ask, go right ahead. We love questions. And we're going to see you tomorrow for the third part of our work together that focuses on your leadership. We've been talking about what you need to know about what your schools need to know so that you can conduct a viable team training workshop. But behind that is your leadership and how it is framed, how it looks, what we've learned, what we want you to know and feel confident about, because without your help, nothing will change in your area of who's doing what or how well they're doing or how they feel about it. As Allison brought up, you know, everybody's busy, everybody has too much to do, but if we really think about your leadership, you really can help change that kind of view in the schools with which you work. So we're going to see.
We have an aha moment, Joyce.
I'm glad to hear that.
Jason says, I appreciated the partnership member breakdown, particularly that it included families, community members, and even students.
Absolutely. And if we don't have a partnership team that is constructed of the partners, then we don't have a partnership program. You know, so we have been in schools that say, oh, we have a team of teachers who are supposed to work on this. That is not a partnership team. Or some would say, we have a parent group and they meet and tell us what they want and need and do. And that may be important. A parent group or PTA, PTO can be very important in a school, but it is not a partnership team. To have a partnership team, you need all partners present. And they do different things, just like we outlined on that chart of the difference between a school improvement team and a partnership team. So we have heard all of the complaints and all of the excuses, but there are research-based answers to them that will help you help your schools. So thank you.
We have another aha, Joyce.
That's good. What if
Courtney agrees with Jason. I also really like the action plan structure.
Good, because it's workable and it doesn't take too long and it really fills things out. You are a great group. We have great hopes for New Hampshire and Indiana, and we hope you will see us tomorrow because it's a very important agenda. See you later.
All right, enjoy your evening. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.